Okay, I'll give people a minute or so to get in here since we're, how shall I say this? We didn't give people notice like we have the last couple times that this was happening. Sort of just realized how late it had gotten and that my schedule won't really allow me to do this for the rest of the week. So it's happening now. We're looking at some power rankings. Don't need to delay stall this. You guys can see that what I have here is my rankings. There's certainly been some movement. We look at this. Let's get out Epic Pen so that we can maybe draw what some of that movement looks like. But this has been pretty exciting in terms of what's happened. So, for those that don't know, the biggest update, the biggest thing that will have happened is we've now run most of the way through our playoff bracket for homecoming. We are into homecoming. We are down to our top six teams. Now, do these teams have to perfectly overlap with what someone does for their top six? Not necessarily. It's a double elimination bracket from top 16, and from top 64 to top 16, it was a single elimination bracket. And before that, it was Swiss for 400 teams or whatever. So it's very possible that teams have had paths through the playoff bracket that have causes you to go, hey, someone in your top six is different than who the last six alive are. But I do think we've come up with some pretty good stuff. I'm happy with the teams that are left. Probably the biggest surprise, the biggest wow that's an early fall is Maryville. Maryville goes out in top 12, which is probably the lowest finish Maryville has ever had. Maryville, since they came onto the scene around the same time Harrisburg did, which basically does predate anyone who's still playing the game at this point, or still playing in Collegiate at this point. But Maryville and Harrisburg came on. Those were the two original battle it out, and maybe Irvine or Utah steal something from them every once in a while if they're not paying attention. But those were the two powerhouse Overwatch schools. And since then, new schools kept coming in, new powerful ones. We had Fisher College and Bay State, its predecessor. We had Northwood. We had lots of things. Harrisburg has since then fallen out and, doesn't exist anymore. We had ISU recruit the American Tornado team, disappear for a semester, and then come back with another crazy team and win it all. In all of that time, Maryville has done a very good job of staying in and actually winning. Now, they don't win every time, but you had years where it's like, okay, Bay State is here. They're definitely going to win. No, Maryville slips through and gets it. Northwood came on with a crazy roster, and surely they're the new school. They're going to win it. No, Maryville slips through and win it. You've had some crazy stuff like that, so this has got to be the worst Maryville. This is the worst Maryville ABC finish, be it homecoming, be it championship cup, that we've ever seen. So that's the big highlight that we'll sort of get into here. Not well. No, blah. There were games that happened for the collegiate in general, but Northeastern got eliminated by Bryant Stratton in the round before this. So here's the round of 16. If you go back one, Northeastern beat Temple and then got eliminated by Bryant Stratton while it was still single elimination. So we didn't make it. Bryant Stratton is still live in the top six. If this meta didn't change, I think Bryant Stratton could be better than top six. Bryant Stratton could in this meta, honestly beat either of these teams. I don't think this team is unstoppable in this meta either, so Bryant Stratton could find themselves with a top three finish depending, but I suspect the meta shift will be a little because we're expected to have a patch tomorrow, and I expect the meta will shift a little bit more, and that probably helps them less than it helps some of these other teams that are still alive. But we'll have to see. The only other games that would have happened that Northeastern would have been tied into were NECC, and this game says 3-0, but it was really a forfeit. Northeastern couldn't get a reschedule from Briarcliff, which, hey, Briarcliff's allowed to not do a reschedule, that's fine. But then the substitute player that Northeastern had was 15 minutes late. And that meant Northeastern had to forfeit the first two maps according to the rule book. And then that player DC'd and Northeastern had to play man down for a game of push. So that's effectively a forfeit. First two maps forfeited, then playing 4v5 for the rest of it. That's a forfeit. So, no, I didn't end up streaming game three, quote unquote, which was really game one of that because that wouldn't have been meaningful. But that does pivot us quite nicely. We were talking about ABC here and what this looks like with our final six here. We'll just go a little bit more into this before we cut over to the rankings. Maryville going out so early is probably the big news. The other big news in my book is Cumberland picking up this win over Bellevue. That's huge. That's the win Cumberland has been looking for ages. They got close earlier versus St. Clair, but couldn't do it. They then had a path through that was a little too uneventful, we'll effectively say, from their 64 to 32. Oklahoma and Santa Cruz just aren't worth enough as wins. They were really looking for a win against a core team, against a like top 16 for realsies this time team, and they finally found it against Bellevue, and Bellevue unequivocally is in that tier. So that's sort of the other exciting thing that we would see here. The Irvine over Maryville, very close match, very good day for Romani. They won all of his maps there. And then Cumberland getting their real win over Bellevue. Bellevue then brought it back the next day with a nice sweep against St. Clair, and then a series that was closer than it looked versus Converse. I know this was a 3-0. Converse did also draw a map, and Converse could have, should have, whatever, won another one of the maps there, but just made a tiny little mistake that probably cost them another map there. So that you look at been some interesting runs here. The last thing that I would look at that's sort of interesting in this bracket, Northwood beating Fisher, that I'm going to cover. I actually still have Fisher ranked ahead of Northwood. That may get me some, how dare you, how dare you, they have the most recent win. And I agree, but Fisher has a win earlier in the season over Northwood, and we have a better season run other than forfeits that's happened out of Fisher than Northwood. And maybe that's the weird thing to say because, okay, if Fisher's forfeited a couple matches, how can they have the better season? But Northwood has looked bad all season, like bad for the level of player that they have. They couldn't keep up with ISU at all. Like I said, they lost to Fisher earlier in the season. It just hasn't been pretty. They had Siena Heights get incredibly close to beating them here, and Siena Heights lost elsewhere to, Ball State. And Ball State, yes, made it into here, but Ball State, we can see, then got swept by UTD, and UTD got swept by Fisher. And of the teams that got in here, this, and where is it? And Mabeel and I are probably the weakest four teams that got in, so this is a little bit of a weak section of the bracket to then push through. The portion, why that becomes relevant is like, okay, Northwood, you're letting Siena get that close to you. That probably shouldn't happen. That's not to say Siena doesn't have some punch in them. That's not to say Siena isn't hungry and isn't capable of getting wins off of some of these teams. They definitely should be capable of that. They did get one over Mizzou, but the caliber of player that Northwood has should not be able to let that close. Now, should Northwood fool around for a map like they've done all the time throughout years of Overwatch history and then go, oh, you're serious? Okay, guys, get on main rules? Yeah, that should happen. Now, I do know that Northwood did have a tank player playing DPS for this match, but they also had a tank player playing DPS for this match, so it can't have held them back that much. Maybe it just took them a little bit of a warm-up to figure out, wait, how does it work with this player in this slot? Regardless, I think that sort of covers the interesting events that happened in ABC here. I suppose the last thing I'll cover here is Illinois Orange continues to not deliver anything for me. Illinois Orange lost to Converse here, and then in the lower brackets lost to Berlin, and it's unfortunate. I know they had a situation where probably their second best player had to play off-roll, and that sucks, but that I feel like has been the story for so many important Illinois matches. I don't think Illinois Orange has had a meaningful win over a core Overwatch team, not a top 20 team, but a core Overwatch team. I don't think they've had that. I don't count Navy. I know some people had Navy way higher than me on their power rankings, but I never considered Navy in the top core of Overwatch this semester. Illinois Orange, as far as I'm concerned, hasn't had a win over another good quality team in over a year at this point. And I just can't leave you in the core. I know they haven't quote unquote lost their matches, but they haven't had a win over a core team in a year. Last semester they lost 3 times to Rutgers. Okay, Rutgers was good. That sucks. But that kept being their important matches. Then they ended up losing to UTD in the playoffs, but they had a weird roster situation. This semester, running through Swiss, they ran into issues where, they had players missing. Maybe it was hurricane related stuff. Then another time, they had crazy internet issues and lost to a California school, not Cal, but I want to say like CSU Long Beach or something, who they wouldn't lose to with their starting roster, or they wouldn't lose to if internet was running. I get that, but now we see them. Okay, we're all the way through. They compete in a very few numbers of things. It's been more than a year, as best I can tell, since they got a win. I just can't have them in the core anymore. They've had some losses that are all excusable. Hey, crazy internet issues. Hey, people off rolling. But you had people off rolling in last semester's playoffs and in this semester's playoffs. He also had internet issues. Like, it sucks. That team should be good. I know that team. I remember that team being good with the same players it has now, but I gotta see it. So that would be the other thing that I look at the playoffs here, and I'm kind of disappointed to see they did not find a core win. And I think at this point, their time in the core just expires for me. They're not going to Narnia or anything, but that's just where I've got to go with them. Okay, so moving on to other competitions. We'll take a quick look through here. We talked about we'll start with Group B. That's where my school was, and I started to talk about that. So we had round 7 of matches. This was a forfeit. This was a forfeit as well. This was a forfeit as well. I guess it's a good thing that SFU took this one, was willing to take this forfeit, or maybe wasn't available, because I'm pretty sure UCI was playing in Face It Master Division at the same time that this match was supposed to happen. So, okay. And then Winthrop 3-0 in Converse, not remotely surprising. So that should give us our standings. I believe it's going to be top 4 that move on. And I don't think that'll be Northeastern. I think that'll probably be Briarcliff. Oh, maybe. If it's Northeastern, that's cool. But I think Northeastern will lose the head-to-head, and that'll probably end up being Briarcliff. If it ends up being Northeastern, fantastic. But I don't think that's right. You guys should have another match played. Wait, were you only 2-4? Am I crazy? Oh, are we going to playoffs and I don't know it? Okay, hey, cool with me if we are. I think this'll be different. I could have sworn that was going to put them 3-4 and give them the head-to-head if we lost to them, but maybe I'm crazy. Whatever. Oh, is it? You got it, Twin Salty? Here, let me pull it. Best way to get there is going to be. Cannot focus on this and scrim? Then focus on your scrim. Sorry, I try to do these after the main block, but I can't do them after the 10 o'clock block, because after the 10 o'clock block, there would just be no one. Let me pull up the NECC bracket that Twin Salty is helpfully telling me now exists. That's probably. I'm surprised that didn't get linked. Okay, I'll do it from here. This should be able to get it. That's Division 2. What if no, there's not a great way to back out from there. That'll work. Watch Division 1. Division playoffs. Cool. Okay, fine. So we look at that. Okay, that's. Hold up. Okay, so Redbird's Academy got through. That's fine. So they won that confusing head-to-head mess. They just didn't record that correctly in standings over here. I knew we wouldn't make it if we lost to Briarcliff, and we would if we did, but we didn't actually get to play that match. It was a forfeit. So be it. Okay, so that is interesting now. That gives us something else to talk about. Thank you, Twin Salty. So we look at this bracket and we'll just run a quick prediction. Like, well, maybe we'll briefly check the other side first. We see what happened over here. The interesting thing in round seven, not surprisingly close. The interesting thing here was going to be, hey, Northwood or Bryant Stratton? Oh, what do you know? Bryant Stratton. And that's what I'm talking about, where Northwood has had a more questionable season than Fisher has. Obviously, Fisher's getting close to dropping to their second team here, but didn't drop, and that's all the difference in the world. And Bryant Stratton went over Northwood. Was Northwood fooling around? Maybe, but that's a playoff ramification match. They're both still going to make playoffs. What this does mean, unfortunately, is that Mizzou does not mean make playoffs, because in the end, it looks like there were probably 5 playoff capable teams on this side, and Mizzou is the one who's going to miss out. Violet Legion was just never going to be in a position to make it. I personally don't think Navy was ever good enough to do it, but maybe I'm wrong there. Um, and then we've got that effectively leaves us with, one too many, with 3 teams that really don't belong: Navy and Violet, and it's not going to let me see fast enough, and Terps, who probably all don't belong in the playoffs. But Mizzou maybe should have belonged in the playoffs, but clearly didn't belong from this side because they couldn't get through. It does raise a question of would they have gotten through on the other side. And maybe kind of Northeastern's fault for what they did against ISU Academy, and then not being able to bring their roster to their final match against Briarcliff there, which of course gives a bit of a fake route through here to ISU Academy. Now, it probably doesn't ultimately matter. ISU Academy will just get eliminated, but maybe Mizzou could have done something with the spot if the sides had been seeded differently, etc. But as we go here, obviously ISU Academy wins through there. That becomes a really tough one that I'm going to favor UCI on, but that's a really tough one. Winthrop will win that, especially if we have a patch. Bryant Stratton wins that, no problem. Then we get from there, Winthrop wins up again, and then ISU again, and then ISU again. I don't care about the patch. So the bottom run becomes a little bit more interesting here. So this should be Redbirds Academy down here. Fine. And then what we should also get is second of match 2. So our bracket flip is going to happen in the second round. So this, based on mine, is going to be Fisher. Fisher wins through there. Fine. I will take a look at Nace. Yes, taking a look at Nace is next in Tatalia. Don't worry. We should have Fisher UCI on stream. That would be great. Are you streaming at Bull Skunk, or are they sticking you on prod? Because I'd be ready for some Bull Skunk Collegiate with some top level teams. That'd be great. Do you think Converse might not have a chance against BSC post patch? They could. Post patch, they totally could. I don't think they will. I think Bryant Stratton is still going to be better. I mean, you don't know exactly how the patch will land. That could become an interesting match. Right now, I think Bryant Stratton just wins that. And if this patch moves the meta only as much as the last patch moved the meta, like, only that much again, I still think Bryant Stratton probably has that pretty firmly, but things could change. For those that don't know, Converse is dealing with, they've got Ginja on Juno, and if the meta shifts in such a way that Ginja, the tank player, Ginja's not really a tank player, he's a full flex player, every role, etc., but not all, quite necessarily at the same level there. That might show a little bit more as a weakness if the flex support has to become someone who isn't Juno and he still has to play it, or maybe they move him to Brig. The thing is, he's been fine at main support before. It's not like he doesn't have plenty of Lucio time, so it would depend a little bit on where that meta goes, if that still works. And then for Bryant Stratton, what does it mean? Obviously, they have fantastic pieces in 4 slots, and their 5th slot is just fine. It's not like, oh my goodness, this is terrible, how could this be here? Their 5th slot would be very good on a lot of collegiate teams, but the 4 pieces around it are just better. And that tank slot is less impactful in metas that are like Orisa and Ram than they are in metas that would be like Queen or Monkey, for example. Those tend to be a little bit higher skill expression tanks, more punishable, etc. And perhaps that becomes a more exploitable weakness where Garchomp can win that matchup more heavily against Pantera if the meta shifts in a way like that. If it doesn't, you go, oh, hey, there's fantastic pieces around Pantera, and that's going to be really tough for Converse to deal with, I think. You're off this weekend, though? I know you've been casting for NECC. I know that. I'm just ready for you to have some high level matches, man. I mean, sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. I think you were supposed to have one recently, but then maybe you were even supposed to be casting our match recently against Fisher White last week, but the Prod's computer just blew up or something. Tiny and Sov casting. Okay. Winthrop and ISU have players in Stockholm. Yeah, they'll figure it out or they won't. I really don't know where the collegiate scene is going in terms of. I get more and more torn on this. Like, on one hand, esports collegiate Overwatch should try to become more and more like normal sports where match day is match day, match time is match time, and short of huge events like hurricanes coming through, like we had this season, there really shouldn't be much need to reschedule. On the other hand, I've historically liked the environment that top level teams have had with each other, high level teams, top 30, top 40 have had with each other of, hey, you're really not going to force a good team to forfeit if you can all avoid it. You can force the teams that never had a chance to forfeit, but you're really not going to force the teams that could beat you to forfeit. Was sort of, for the first 4 years of collegiate Overwatch, something that I think the scene did pretty well, and that has eroded more and more. Northeastern has now been burned out of playoffs by that in some ways twice. Don't feel great about that, and I suppose we could have avoided that had we been sticklers and said, no, Winthrop, you have to forfeit to us, which of course we didn't do because that would be silly. Though we'd be in playoffs if we had. So, I don't know. I get more and more torn on that as time passes because the scene is never going to stay as good as it was. As soon as you get a couple bad actors in there, it does poison the whole thing. And I think we've probably hit the number of bad actors that maybe the whole scene should be adjusting to, okay, professional mode, serious mode. We play at match time. We play on match day. We're only doing readjustments for a hurricane came through or literally your school has a blackout and maybe that's not a high enough bar. I don't know. Okay. This is an early stream, I just realized. Little bit, I suppose. Not that early. I usually do them after the 8 to 10 block. It's definitely eroding. We at Blinn will be implementing a reschedule policy going forward. It sucks, but it's something we have to do for admins and higher ups. I get it, man. I get it. And I'm probably like this close to being there myself. I don't know if I'm there yet, but that could change like in a week. Missing playoffs twice off of teams not rescheduling for you when you gave them tons of reschedule options, and they are, top 30, top 40 level teams. Especially when you led another team and you would have secured your playoff path if you had forced a forfeit on them, might be done with it. Might be done with it. But we'll see. We'll see. It's less the pettiness. It's more a, hey, if it's going to be serious, if it's going to have reliable broadcasting, if it's going to have an audience that can know when the matches are going to happen and tune in week to week, you do sort of need it. That just makes it, that is a little bit mutually exclusive, though, with the collegiate players playing in other things like Face It League, like OWCS, like Calling All Heroes, and the scene is higher level if you can do that, and that is important. Now we don't have much trouble collegiate scrimming tier 3, tier 2, and vice versa, but when the scene first got big, Maryville and Harrisburg struggled to get contenders scrims. They, had the right rosters to scrim contenders. They really struggled to get contenders scrims because Ew, you're collegiate. And even after you got more into the scene, like collegiate needed the legitimacy. It's really only had that for a couple years now. And I'm the old head, so I can look back and say these things. And if we do a strict, hey, teams aren't rescheduling, schools aren't rescheduling, we are going to lose some of our cross player pull from Calling All Heroes, from Master Division, Face It, whatever, from OWCS, and that creates its own issues. Or maybe it just creates, hey, everyone's going to have to run deeper rosters, and you're going to have to accept that there's days where you play without your star player, just like, a high school team might play without their best player because they are on the selects team while also playing at the high school. Who knows? We'll figure it out. Okay. I believe ISU will not have their normal roster for NACE due to their teams being split at ISU Stockholm and NACE rules about being in person. I still can't imagine. Well, let's see when our matches are. So we've got 15th, 16th, 22nd, 6th. So really what they need to do is they need to get through round 2. And it becomes a question of, can ISU and friends get through UCI or Fisher? Because they can definitely get through their own academy team. They will be gutting their own academy. They will theoretically be gutting their own academy team for their backup players. We've seen them do that before. But I do imagine they get through that. So it becomes a question of, can they get through this then? Rough roster right now, I guess, is Luke Mino, Goose, and 3 Acad plays. Oh yeah, so then they can't get through. You're right. If the timelines, if that interferes with this match, UCI or Fisher wins that, and that changes everything. It becomes a question of, can they survive long enough in lower bracket to then run it back, which is its own question. I'll flip over to my ranking since we've had more people show up here. And that's probably what people are really here for, the rankings. We just do the other stuff too. These are the rankings. I'll go through them. I'll explain them. I'm just going to pivot back to the bracket for. Let's maybe go flip over to NACE for a moment. I guess we're going in reverse order. Usually we start with the sort of power rankings and then do sort of brackets and other news, etc. But we had the last chance qualifier happen as sort of the way back in for teams. This would be for teams that didn't naturally get in there. University of Texas Dallas was 0-7 in Super Conference, so they needed a route in, and it looks like they got the win over UST. UST is not nearly as good as that school has been in past years, but UST out, UTD in. North Texas got their win over JMU. Cool. And last chance bracket would be for teams that did not win their bracket to get in, be that top 6 in Super Conference or winning a bracket from a regional division, etc. So teams that got second, third, etc., trying to fight their way through there. We see that Oakland University, that one always gets some looks because Croy has been there, but Croy does not make an entire team. Looks like Shocker OW finds its way through. Tamu, fine, and Converse. Converse was the other team to not make top 6 in Super Conference, and they also find their way through against a team I've never heard of. Fine with me. So now we can look at their single elimination playoff bracket, and we'll do this real quick. Some of them are leaving tomorrow for boot camps. Yeah, it could completely destroy playoffs. Could completely destroy collegiate playoffs. And that's what makes it hard. That's kind of the conversation we were having of, if teams at the top level aren't going to do reschedules, aren't going to play nice with each other, and it looks more and more like there's enough bad actors that maybe you can't anymore, you get to a place where, are the top players going to be willing to stay in collegiate? And the answer should be yes, because guys, collegiate is the only place with money. Collegiate might not have very much money, but like the rewards for playing in collegiate are by far the best in the ecosystem. If you're not winning it all, if you're not literally winning it all, if you're not beating Crazy Raccoons, the rewards for playing on a top level collegiate team are better than the rest of the scene. And if you're going, okay, well, outside of the handful of schools that give good collegiate rewards, the collegiate rewards aren't good. Okay, if you're not at the handful of schools that can do that, you weren't going to Stockholm and winning real prize money either. Lethal is on Nightmare. Yep, yep. Barely. I hear you, Kernmaster. I hear you. Okay. Winthrop. Can't reschedule those matches for Nace, really? Yeah, there's nothing that can be done. There's really nothing that can be done. I'm just pointing out it becomes a really tough situation. So what do we have in terms of interesting matches? I still don't know who Shocker OW is. That's not Miami, Ohio. That instantly gets eliminated. We've got Saints, who is that? Is that? They've been calling themselves Saints, and I hate it. Yeah, that is who I thought it was in terms of uh, Tanuki blanking Siena Heights. Thank you. So we look at this. Saints versus UTD. I expect Saints will get that, though we'll see. We will see. UTD playing at a whole nother level now. They did take down Rutgers. Now, I don't think this was a very good meta for Rutgers at all. Rutgers doesn't scrim together as a team, and this is the probably most teamwork heavy, sort of practice heavy, less mechanical takeover heavy, unless it's specifically in your Genji or your Widow that we've had. Like the flex support mechanical contribution is the lowest it's been in Overwatch 2. We've had Kiriko for almost all of Overwatch 2, and even for most of Overwatch 1. Like, uh, Juno is just less mechanical expression, less playmaking ability outside of an ult, which is race to charge the ult. And it's not like a skill shot of an ult itself either. Which is not to say there's no difference between, CJ playing Juno and random other player playing Juno. There's skill differences, and you see them with Junos, but it's less sort of result from your flex support than you've had in a long time. Orisa gives your tank some ability to influence the match, but much less than a Junker Queen or a Winston or really even a Reinhardt sort of thing. um, Teamwork matters, but it's teamwork for how do you handle these ult trades? How do you handle this? It's much less like, hey, your practice from previous metas carry over because it's ult related than say dive meta, which carries from dive meta to dive meta, even if there's 6 months gaps between them and so on. So we'll see. Bad meta for Rutgers. That said, UTD absolutely could win. This would be an exciting match. I would be curious to see this match. I hope it gets streamed. Yeah, UTD 3-0'd Rutgers. In fact, we don't have a Widow player. I know. We are quite happy, Ajax, when we run into Heatwave and we just go, hey, Hedwig, go Widow. Because it's the same player we're abusing. Sorry. Okay. So then we go through here. St. Clair will beat Tamu. That's going to happen. Fine. We're going to go through here. Blinn, that get a free win there. North Texas versus Winthrop. Sorry, that's just not happening. Winthrop wins that unless, again, what's my date on this match? My date on this match is tomorrow, and they're already there. Maybe this is your chance, North Texas. Put the big win on the board. Take advantage of the fact that their players aren't there. Maybe they'll even forfeit. I don't know. But those players, that school does not have it. I don't know what they're doing. Like, I legit don't know what they're doing because if they've already left for that, that school is definitely not have enough players on their team. Like, they don't have people roster riding. We can click in to confirm this, but they don't have people roster riding who could fill in for that. 7-person roster. All of these people except Sam and Kaluge are going to be. Yeah, that's death. Good luck. Good luck. And then he reloads in the other Widow's face. Yes, yes, he does that sometimes. Um, our best players are on characters where they can barely make a difference compared to Bob's. Yeah, that's true, Ajax. Your best players. I mean, is Tap playing your Genji or is Tap playing your Ash in that situation? I don't. How are you guys fielding that? I assume you have him playing your Genji, or are you trying to force Tracer? Genji. I mean, I don't necessarily. His Genji's fine. I don't think of it as one of his strongest heroes. I'd probably go Tracer than Echo, but you know, Tap could be doing what Peace is doing, comparatively speaking, and be very, very meaningful. Now, manually is better backup in that regards on Widow, but there's room to do things. I would say Genji and Widow are the most impactful positions. Genji probably a little bit. It's weird on the maps where you can play Widow, which is more than you'd think. Probably slightly more Widow, but you can't play Widow on all the maps. You do have to accept that you have to be Cass or Ash on some of them in the meta we're talking about, anyways. And Genji is preferable in those, I'd say. His Genji is good. I agree. His Genji is good. I don't think his Genji is a weakness. It's just I wouldn't say it's his strongest hero, but his Genji is, you know, good. His Genji should have been the best Genji in the lobby for sure. SU lineup will most likely be Arise, Vantage, Kuffa, Lugmino, Goose, Doctor Death, which again they'll beat their academy team with, but that won't beat Irvine or Fisher. So they'll have to make a lower bracket run. And then Winthrop doesn't look like they can make it. Like, I'm crossing out Winthrop because Winthrop doesn't sound like he can play, which is hilarious, but go North Texas! Woot woot! um, then we've got. What am I saying? And Nate has in-person requirements, so there's no way through there. ISU's roster should beat Shocker. So Winthrop probably dead to North Texas because I don't think they have enough players. ISU, if they are allowed to use the lineup that I'm being told, they'll win. They would probably lose to Saints, which I'm looking at and still saying that's not what they are. I hate that because Saints could be St. Clair, could be Maryville, or could be Siena Heights, and in this case, it's Siena Heights. So I think Siena Heights, and if not Siena Heights, UTD will beat that thing unless they get another full week here before the next round. Then we go through here, Converse versus Mizzou. This is Mizzou's last chance. Mizzou didn't make it into. Mizzou went out in round of 64, I want to say, to in ABC. Mizzou went out early in CECC. That's where they took their loss to Siena Heights, and that's the first bit of legitimacy for Siena Heights. Too bad they then threw it away by losing to Ball. And then Mizzou didn't make playoffs in NECC either. And Mizzou has a good roster. They clearly went and recruited to go get it. Mizzou, if you'd asked committee members, would have firmly been in the top 20 just based on roster strength. And Mizzou hasn't historically been weak. Mizzou last year was just sitting right outside the top 20. Literally right outside the top 20, like 22, 23 sort of place. And they probably still make people's top 20 because it's not like they flubbed wildly, but they haven't put results up anywhere. And that's the four biggest things in Overwatch, in Collegiate Overwatch, are ABC, CECC, NECC, and NACE. Those are the four biggest leagues, most prestigious things, and they kind of need it here, and they're up against Converse, so that's a little tough. Now, the reason they're up against Converse is because they came in through non-super conference because Converse was in super conference and they weren't because they weren't as strong a team last season. I think I have to give it to Converse. That hurts. Mizzou's going to be hungry. If Mizzou isn't mentally broken, they will be hungry for this win. Whereas Converse might be okay. They might be a little bit like, we can rest on our laurels. I'm gonna call Mizzou here. Sorry, Converse. I think if both of you were equally hungry, you get that. But I think Converse is going to be thinking about other things, playing in other things, satisfied with their ABC run, still alive in NECC. I'm going with that. That'll be my hot take. Pride greater than money. I think that's what most of the scene is, Noreen. Mizzou had the land buff, low key. Fair. UTD beat the Rutgers curse. There you go. And I think the pride greater than money thing is actually pretty important for the Overwatch scene in general. Most of these players are playing for pride at this point. The prize pools aren't big enough for that to be a real thing. And there's no Overwatch league that you're going, oh, well, we're playing good enough so that we get scouted so that we can go to a place where the money is sustainable. That's not here, and it's not going to be back on a timeline that any of the players who are currently playing this game in college would be able to then pivot into it. Like if the Overwatch scene were to come back in a monetarily meaningful way, that would be years out, and years out for people that are currently in college is too far out because you guys are going to get used to getting real jobs that actually pay better money than Overwatch League ever paid. Not necessarily that it ever paid total dollars, but then it ever paid in terms of factoring in its security, factoring in, yeah, I mean, it was like, okay, if when they were actually paying your housing expenses, that was one thing, but that got cut pretty quickly. So since that's been gone, Overwatch League hasn't actually been very good pay wise, nor has it been very good security wise, nor has it been very good pay per hour wise. Though people think of pay per hour a little wrong sometimes. Most of the really high paying stuff doesn't factor on a 40-hour work week very well. Okay, Maryville is fine, even if they've lost players. I think Maryville should be fine. Oh, they're up against Patriots. As long as they can feel the roster, they're fine. And then Grandview, sorry, you don't have it. And then after this, I want to real quickly see the following round. Round of 8 is when? This is tomorrow. Round of 8 is Thursday, which doesn't go any better. Or no, excuse me, it's Saturday, which isn't really better. And then round of 4 is Tuesday. Okay, so maybe back by Tuesday, but round of 8 is just going to be death for these teams that don't actually have their players, is what I'm getting here. So if I line this back up, looking at that, we would then see continuing on, just our quick little bracket run. This is silly. It's really more based on availability than anything. We would see Saints go through to here. St. Clair. St. Clair going to get off the Mauga? Is St. Clair going to get off the Mauga? You're going to lose if you stay on the Mauga. Oh, this could be fun. This could be fun. If St. Clair stays on them, oh, but we have a patch. We have a patch, and they'll adjust for the patch. Darn it! I was about to have a really fun storyline. And the patch is stealing it from me. Oh well. Oh well. Brady support clears Bellevue. There you go, Brady. I'm ready. I'm ready for you guys, Grandview, to beat Bellevue with Brady on support. Tell the storyline? Well, the storyline is Siena Heights, this new team to the scene who's, desperate to prove themselves in the collegiate world, isn't having a great time in expert division, or in master division. I think they did finally get a win in master division. I think they got it over sort of their sister team. I guess not really sister team, but team that they share a manager with. But another bottom feeder team, but it's a win. They'd gone like 0-7 in Face It Master Division, and then I think they finally found a win. So they've been like desperate to prove themselves. They can't quite find a match that matters in collegiate as Siena Heights. They we're going winless for so long in Master Division, and it would have been great if we'd then seen them go, a little bit because of the ISU not having roster availability, but then it went over St. Clair not pivoting off of Mauga. Like, how deep could it go, sort of thing. But I think St. Clair will pivot off of Mauga with a patch, and that'll probably save them. Sorry, North Texas. Mizzou will beat you. I think Maryville has a few full roster, and if they do, they beat Bellevue, and then they go through there, and then it doesn't matter if rosters come back because this is what we're looking at, and that's St. Clair versus Maryville, and so Maryville will still find a league to win. Okay, okay. Blinn is hard underrated in this meta. I don't think Blinn's underrated. I think we all respect that Blinn is good in this meta. I remember looking at, as I was watching the Blinn match, here we'll go back to ABC here. As I was watching the Blinn versus Cumberland match, I kind of knew. I mean, as soon as Cumberland failed to, Blinn had a hiccup as far as I'm concerned by letting the first point of Koth go to Cumberland on what should have been theirs, just based on, yes, they have a Widow specialist. Blinn has a Widow specialist that's, I mean, if you think of the top Widows in the league, it's what? Lethal, and probably Vision. Am I missing anyone before I get to Blinn's Widow? Sunset? Like, uh, that's, and obviously Lethal is hours above. Sorry, it's just true. The rest of the league, and anyone who says, no, 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 Vision's good. Vision is good. But Vision was also there. Vision was on the team last season in Master Division or whatever it was. Maybe it was OWCS. I don't remember. He was on the team, and then Lethal was like, "Oh yeah, I can come play." We're down 3 in the series, and Lethal stepped in and they reverse swept the series for Vision, if memory serves. So let's not kid ourselves. I know that wasn't on Widow, but oh, you're blind. You can't see any of those numbers. Okay, okay. I mean, we lose our rally on well to a bump. I get it, Ginger, but that's not what it was about. Like, you guys clutched hard enough to take the first point, to take ruins from Blinn. You then had to win the match on well. You were always dead. You were always going to be dead on the third point, Lighthouse, and you probably should have been dead on ruins as well. Fantastic on you guys for clutching it up and getting ruins. I suspect Blinn went back and looked at that and went, how did we mess this up, sort of thing. Maybe they didn't because they won the series and went, okay, it's behind us. But I would have looked at that and been like, wait a second, this is the Widow point. Yes, everyone knows how to play around the Widow on this point, but Blinn has clearly built their team around using that Widow, protecting that Widow. Like, it's not, oh, we've dropped Widow into a team and there's been no adjustments for it. That's not what's happening, and this is a good meta for Widows to take over matches. We know what we did. We fixed it. There you go, Kyle. There you go. But yeah, Blinn, obviously, they're eliminated now. They lost to Irvine there, but I don't think Blinn's underrated in this meta. I think Blinn is good in this meta, and I think this, unfortunately, is how I expected this match to go. I was rooting for, in some ways, the Cumberland underdog to, come through here and get wins. I knew this was off the table. I was rooting for you in this, guys. I actually think you guys didn't clutch up hard enough in this match. You guys should have won this match against Bellevue 3-1. You choked. I was really surprised that you brought that back after choking how you did. I know I'm about to generate some hate from my buddies over at Cumberland there, but meh. Okay. Okay. So looking back at, so we're looking at this. We had our, I think we'll go on to our rankings now. Oh yeah, so we did our NACE run. Looks like Maryland should get a championship here. That will help paper over the fact that they missed here. Obviously, it's a little bit of this all of the playoffs besides ABC or NACE and NECC will both get a little bit of an asterisk, but people will forget about that asterisk a semester later. If ISU, when Winthrop don't have their players because they're playing in something else, playing in what do you call it? What really becomes interesting here is what we get. So ISU. Oh, I should probably make this a little bit bigger. That would have been wise of me the whole time. Sorry, guys. Um, so dropper here should be ISU Acad. That's terrible, but we'll do it. And then the bracket flip is going to have next one. Drop here, I said, is going to be Fisher. And so this is ISU, but then UCI goes through. Fine. Winthrop, I legit don't think has the players to play. Like, I legit just don't. So this has to be win. And then that means Northwood goes through. I am going to give this to Bryant Stratton, but if the patch is big, it flips to Converse. It depends how the patch lands. It depends what roles the patch impacts. So that would mean Converse drops down here, and then we should get our bracket flip where Northwood versus Bobcats. The patch will have happened, so I'm going to give it to Northwood. I want my Bryant Stratton storyline. I want to see Siena Heights make a semifinals or deeper run in NACE, and I want to see Bryant Stratton run all the way through and win this if Winthrop and ISU aren't available. But I'm not going to get it. Okay. Are we even allowed to pull up a CAD roster of a varsity roster if we're in the same tourney for NECC? They did it earlier in the season. I mean, maybe that was a first 2 weeks thing and then the roster's locked, but I remember earlier in the season they had Vantage or someone playing on the main team while their academy team didn't have him, and then later he was back on the academy team. So they've done it before. Maybe for playoffs they can't. Maybe it was only you can do it for the first 2 or 3 weeks thing. I don't know, but if not, it doesn't really change anything because they drop to the same spots and these matches are going to go the same way because ISU dropping here, match 7 is going to be ISU, and the teams here are too good with the exception of ISU Academy to lose to an ISU that's missing that many people. Winner of this is Converse, and then if ISU's roster is still that compromised, Converse will beat that. And then ISU Acad versus Fisher gives us, of course, Fisher. And then who do we have? Loser of match 8. Match 8 loser I have as BSC, unfortunately. Versus Fisher. Yeah, I'm going to put Fisher. Why am I doing that? I should just draw arrows. That's more consistent with my format. Sorry, guys. Fisher, and then Fisher gets that. And then our drop from here was this, who I'm going to give to UCI, which makes this Northwood. So Northwood versus Fisher. And I think at this point, Northwood will have it turned back on and we'll have a rematch in the playoffs of Northwood UCI, which at that point I'm going to give to Northwood. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do there. That'll be fun. Fisher's good and we almost beat them. Goat behavior. Fisher's been inconsistent. We almost beat them too. In some ways, that's a function of the meta. They won both maps, but those were both a team fight away sort of thing. Okay, so these could be exciting. This maybe makes some exciting Overwatch in part because the top players are locked out. And the top players being locked out, this is sort of the problem, and this is a perfect time to pivot to our actual power rankings. The top players are generally so much better or enough better than the rest of the scene that the actual Overwatch happens in here. Like, this is the actual collegiate level Overwatch. Obviously, that's a silly thing to say when there's like 300 to 400 teams in ABC. So the actual level of collegiate Overwatch, you could say, is much, much lower. It's, maybe plat, diamond, something like that. But like the level that we follow, that we regularly see on broadcast, that we get to track, is sort of the X through 16, X through 18, X through 20, and that X is generally something, in the past, that X has really been more like 4 through 18, 4 through 16. Now I think we're legitimately down to 3 through, I think it's 15 right now. We'll do our little count, but I think 3 through 15 is where the good Overwatch is right now. Some of these teams will recover as soon as the meta shifts. Rutgers will recover in a different meta. Mizzou, I can't imagine staying down here. Northeastern will not continue to be. Maybe it will. Maybe it will. We just graduated our flex DPS, so I shouldn't put the cart ahead of the horse there. We'll have to retrain our way back up, and no one should immediately revert us to like spot 14 or anything on the meta shift. But looking at this, this gets interesting because the core collegiate is going to sort of, this battle is going to get to happen, it sounds like, in NECC playoffs and NACE playoffs to a deeper degree than it usually gets to. Usually a lot of what Collegiate Overwatch is about for these teams, unfortunately, if you're not named Rutgers, is avoiding the landmines that are the champion or potential champion teams there. Usually that's really a lot of what it is about, and like how deep someone's bracket run can go. Like last season, do I have a last season? Maybe I have a last season. That's CCC. Yeah, this one, for example, this bracket, this is last season's Collegiate Cup spring semester. Maryville, ISU, Northwood, Winthrop, and to a slightly lesser degree Fisher, were uncatchable teams for the rest of the scene. They were just uncatchable. So the best anyone could get was 6th place, which St. Clair did, but it was impossible for a team that fell into this side of the bracket to get 6th place. Just because there's too many landmines to dodge, and there's no way for them to dodge landmines unless they can upset a Maryville or a Winthrop, and that just was not realistically doable for the 6 to 16 or 6 to 18 teams. That just wasn't a real thing. Sorry. This patch, this meta, completely different. This patch, everyone's beatable except ISU. Sorry, just real. Okay. If Siena Heights University can take Northwood to map 5 and Fisher beats Maryville, then Fisher just mops Northwood. Let me direct your attention to. Fisher beat Northwood here, but Northwood beat Fisher in ABC. That happened. And then Stratton versus Fisher, I think that was a 3-2 first week of the season. First week of the season is quite a bit back now. That did slightly go in Fisher's favor. Fisher is not untouchable. Northwood is not untouchable. Those are not unstoppable things. Also, I hate to break this one to you, no one is going to give you any credit for map wins against Northwood. No one is ever going to do it. Northwood is the worst offender for not taking teams seriously, off-rolling, letting their DPS play literally whatever heroes they want, and LEP just working around it to sort of make the thing work, or, maybe other players fooling around. Like, Northwood is the team that, until the match is on the line, does not care, and it's a question of if they even care when the match is on the line this time. But you will see teams that are like firmly not top 16, firmly not top 20, like, top 30 teams go, oh yeah, we got a map off Northwood. And that's like, congratulations. You've now, like, it's harder for a top 8 team to get a map off Northwood in previous seasons than it is for a top 30 team to get a map off Northwood, because Northwood walks into the match against the team that they respect as top 8, like Irvine, and goes, oh yeah, we should actually play, guys. Like, that's just how Northwood is. Sorry. No one's going to give you credit. And you can say, "What temporal? That's not fair." I'm sorry, I've just got a longer history at this. That is how the scene is, and everyone knows it. Um, Miss Zarya Gaming. Hey, Backstep Bud, how you doing? Um, cool. Go to Cumberland. I've talked lots about Cumberland. Cumberland's great. Okay. WTF? WTF obviously means what the fuck. And this tier should be pretty self explanatory. No one had Rutgers. No one had Rutgers not making it through. Right? Like, I think we all accept that and go, hey, what happened here? So we're jumping around tiers, but I'm happy to do it. So this one was a big surprise, and it's a big fall from grace for Rutgers, especially after Rutgers was super close against Northwood. But they didn't put the other wins on the board elsewhere that really locked them into a higher tier. So they are the top of the WTF tier. Illinois Orange, I started this stream by pointing out I don't think Illinois Orange has a win against a top 16 team in over a year at this point. I can't do it. I can't leave them in the core when it's been over a year since they've had a match win that matters to me, and they've had some losses. The losses have all been excusable. Last semester against UTD, they lost 3-2. I want to say in the playoffs, but they had to off roll, and oh yeah, that sucks. You had to off roll, and then this semester in the playoffs, they lost, but they had to off roll. Okay, yeah, that sucks, but you had to off roll. And in the Swiss stage, they lost to a California school. I think it was CSULB, but they had internet issues. And like, okay, cool, but that's 3 matches with excuses, and they're good excuses. They are, but I think it's been more than a year since Illinois has a win that I care about. And all of these schools have a win that I care about this season. They all do. This school, this school, this school. I think Rutgers and this school, and even this school and this school all have wins that I care about. Illinois doesn't have a win I care about, and hasn't for a year. Those are results. Okay, so we go like that. UTD, obviously, we know why they're in the WTF tier. Good on UTD to get the win over Rutgers. Absolutely fantastic. It's more fun when UTD is in the mix because they are a bit of a dark horse team that can go up and down. Obviously, they're still down here because they have bad losses. And I don't think I have UTD's pulled up because UTD's losses are old news at this point. If it's fast, maybe if I see them immediately. But UTD has bad losses. Since Noreen's here, I'll pull them up. Assuming that this website wants to load. Come on. What team is this? Oh, that's UCI. Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, was that? No. Let's go ahead and... Will this page through, or is this going to freeze as a result? No, that'll work for me. Oh, I can just pull up the spreadsheet. Thank you, Twisted. Thank you, Twin Salty. That is going to work out better. I assume I can pull it up. UTD. UTD has lost to Cumberland and Northwood, which is fine. They also have a loss to Santa Cruz, which is not fine. Santa Cruz is a relevant school, but they are not a good enough school. If this was 3 years ago, lost to Santa Cruz would be whatever. Did that happen, actually? I think that did happen like 3 years ago in playoffs. Santa Cruz, I think, collapsed UTD and took their route and got top 8. I think that happened. I could be misremembering. Noreen will know. Or I can just look it up here. And then we've also got a loss over there. We've got another one there, and then we've also got the obviously 0-7 run in Super Division, which, unfortunate. So that would be why UTD is in our WTF tier. Mizzou, of course, again, expected to be a very strong roster. The committee and myself all expected, hey, these guys did serious recruiting. They formed a good, clearly top 20 roster. And it hasn't really put up the results. It won at Land there, got the win over Blinn. Absolutely fantastic. Good to see. Super nail biter. Hasn't really put up the win since then and lost to Siena Heights. And you might go, well, then why is Siena Heights not ahead of them if they lost to Siena Heights? Because Siena Heights lost to Ball. And you might go, okay, well, then why isn't Ball ahead of Siena Heights? Because Ball has more bad losses than Siena Heights or Mizzou. Multiple losses that are clearly not at that level, etc. So that's how this continues. Oh yeah, my hair's gotten pretty shaggy. UTD situation so weird from outside. This is phone. Hey Alex, how you doing? You couldn't play 2 weeks due to calling all heroes plus funeral. I'm sorry you had to go to a funeral there. Pedal was our emergency ringer. Yeah, I know. I'm aware of the situation there, phone. I don't I'm not particularly bothered by the situation there. I know some people think that people are really bothered by it. I don't think anyone is hugely bothered by it. I think people were ranking UTD based on the info they had, and multiple teams, have scrimmed against UTD. UTD's played in matches. Some of that has been available on streams. It was no secret that for most of the season, Pedal wasn't playing, so it was then a surprise when he was. And you guys are a better team when Pedal is playing and Pedal feels good, is playing well, etc. That's not a secret, but and yes, I understand some of the losses that UTD has comes from when Pedal wasn't playing, but that's what's holding this back. We'll effectively say. Please never let there be a ball meta. I mean, I like ball metas. We don't have Sklee anymore, so ball metas aren't that fun for us anymore. Converse really tore it up the last time we had a ball meta. We only really had one real Overwatch 2 ball meta. Converse tore it up in that. Rutgers tore it up coming out of that at the end. Sort of moved towards Winston. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that is how it works, Natalia. That's literally how it works. When you're looking initially to rank teams, when you're looking at a team and you're trying to find out the quality of a team, the real shorthand to do it is going to be best win, worst loss. That's what's going to happen. And it sucks that this meta is more tradey and has a little bit of an anyone can beat anyone. That's not really true to it, but that's what things are going to look at. And as time passes, things do fade. That's one way. So the further away in time your loss gets, the more it'll be semi crossed out. Obviously, the semester's about 10, which will effectively mostly erase it, but it mostly erases your win too. There'll be a little bit of carryover there. And the other thing would be stacking more in this column. If you go stack up 3 more good wins, people are going to hold the ball loss against Siena a lot less seriously as long as they don't add to it with a, I don't know, Miami, Ohio loss or a Terps loss or whatever the case is there. But yeah, the way to erase it, which you can never truly do, is don't pick up more bad losses and let time pass and find more good wins. That's how it works. And Siena Heights hasn't done that. Sorry. Converse with quick shots. Yes, yes. It was a fun ball meta. Well, they sort of were the first collegiate team to find that in a lot of ways. Do not fish your navy in the pit. Lots of teams are in the pit, man. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. Georgia Tech's in the pit. They were a playoff team last year. Georgia Tech maybe is rightfully a little annoyed to be this low because their losses are to Cumberland in both NECC and ABC, but obviously they found other losses. But Cumberland isn't a bad team, and Georgia Tech maybe got knocked a little too hard for that Cumberland loss. Maybe Georgia Tech should be up here. I don't know. Um, that's fine. They don't really fit with the narrative of WTF quite the same way because a loss to Cumberland isn't some terrible thing. Um, but hey. Then we continue through here. Utah's obviously here. Hey, they got the win over Northeastern. Great, fantastic, fine. Ball State obviously has bad losses, but has the win over Siena Heights, and Siena Heights has the win over Mizzou, and Mizzou has a win over Blinn, and Blinn has wins over lots of, etc. Northeastern obviously has their win over Converse, but then has losses to Utah and to ISU Academy. The Briarcliff, like I said, that's a forfeit, not a real match there, but they Northeastern stacked up multiple bad losses there. WTF is the right thing to call them at this point. Going back up through our teams and where teams are where they are, UC Irvine was sort of sitting here without proof for the longest time. They absolutely got their proof this time with the win over Maryville. Maryville goes out in round of 12, but Maryville beat multiple opponents on the way through. This is still perfectly reasonable place for them to be. The place where I might take some flack is on my Fisher Northwood situation, where again, if we go back and we look at this, we can see that not only did Northwood beat Fisher while they had their second tank player, playing DPS. So what are you doing, Temporal? I know, but as I kind of explained at the beginning, if Northwood has looked bad this semester, Northwood has looked very not dialed in this semester, and Fisher did also beat Northwood earlier in the season, and the more recent one is usually more important. Yes, I grant you that. The most recent one, more important, generally the way to go with it. I can't look past the greater body of evidence on this one. I think if they play that match again, Fisher probably wins it. I also saw in Fisher's most recent matches, this is some eyeball test here, and these guys have traded. We did see let's get the right season here. Fisher looked good against Bellevue. Fisher looked good against Bellevue. That looked clean. Bellevue probably overstuck on the May setup. Maybe that's what Stone was practiced on, and Stone just did not feel comfortable on Genji. But even if they tried to force it with like a Tracer situation, that may have been better. They clearly wasn't working against what Fisher was doing. But hey, maybe it's a by the day thing. Oh, what's that? My face when temporal says my question has an obvious answer, but someone else asked the same question, like it's not obvious. Wait, someone else asked what WTF stands for? That surprises me. Like, are we not on the internet in 2024? Okay. WTF stands for what the fuck. That's what it stands for. Okay. Um, Mystery Machine is Pitt. That's old lore backstab, bud. Mystery Machine is the name that University of Pittsburgh played with years ago. Probably the last time they were almost relevant. That was the name that they played under, and even the Blizzard employees got a chuckle out of it because they went, you guys probably have no idea who to reach out to for this school, to contact the school for anything, because even we had to work really hard to go figure out what school it was, and we have back-end data, etc. Yeah. uh, So based on the rankings, Winthrop is beating Northwood next weekend. Will not if rosters get torn apart. If rosters get torn apart, who knows? But if we're looking at ABC specifically, and we're thinking about, I mean, this becomes a mess because of what's going to happen. We didn't actually run our ABC bracket the rest of the way through, but this becomes a question of who's losing players to Stockholm for OWCS, championship, etc. sort of stuff. And that kind of destroys the bracket. We ran the bracket for a predicted bracket for NECC and NACE. I suppose we haven't done it for ABC yet here. If they had both rosters at full capacity, my expectation would be, yes, that Winthrop does beat Northwood. Pretty handily, in fact. Yeah, I mean, Winthrop will just have to forfeit if they can't make match times work. Winthrop will have to forfeit, and that just kills them. And I don't think ABC won't let them move players around the same way NECC did, or at least the last semester that it did. I know Fisher took advantage of it one semester, but that was only for the first week or two. ISU might face a similar thing where if they're missing players, they're dead. Except I feel like the ISU players generally prioritize ISU, so that's a tough one. I don't know what's going on there, but whatever. Um, that's a tough one. And I guess Northwood has players that would be out too for that if I'm thinking about who's on what team. I think Maryville doesn't anymore. I don't think anyone on Maryville's team made it. But anyway. So yeah, we're looking at that. We finished off our WTF tier here. We were in the middle of this tier. I think if this meta continued, Bryant Stratton would find its way forward. I think with the patch that this probably becomes where they stop, but they didn't get the wins to prove themselves further forward, so they're not further forward. We're doing this off actual matches overwhelmingly. That's what matters at this point in the season. We're not looking at roster strength right now. We're not looking at legacy. We are way too deep in the season. We are in the playoffs for 3 of the 4 major leagues at this point. We are definitely looking at the actual wins at this point in the season for people to move around. And while eyeball test, I think Brian Stratton would go far. If there wasn't a patch tomorrow, I think we'll see the patch, and top 6 may be where they end there. Again, unless we have situations of teams losing rosters, etc. What's the reasoning behind having Converse ahead of Blinn? Last head did, and Nace we won. So Converse ahead of Blinn. You guys have been a bit messy. Not you specifically, sorry. I'm not saying Blinn has been messy here, though I suppose that's true. Really what's happening is my rankings, like I set them, and then they move based on the matches that happen and the results that happen. And if we look at what happened, if I look at my previous rankings, I had Converse ahead of you guys. Or if I didn't have Converse ahead of you guys, Converse got pulled ahead by the win. Who did Converse take out? Converse killed ASU. That's what happened. Converse killed ASU to get through, and I had ASU further ahead at the time. ASU has, of course, dropped as a result of that, but that is what happened there. It was the Converse win over ASU that put them in this position. And then if I look at what you guys did, it's not that what you guys did is, you guys being Blinn in this case, is bad whatsoever. I mean, obviously, no one's holding the loss against Winthrop to you, but a win over Illinois Orange isn't doing it for me because Illinois Orange isn't a registered team as far as I'm concerned. They haven't had a win in over a year. And then I have Cumberland lower than perhaps some people on the committee. I like Cumberland, but that they choked a bit here, even though they then got the win. This is their only win so far over a top 16 team. This win isn't worth as much as Converse's win over ASU is worth, is the long story short there. Yeah. Okay. Um, but I agree. You guys did win the last head-to-head in Nace, and maybe that should do it, but that's ultimately how I got what I got there. It's entirely possible. When was your last head-to-head in Nace? Let me look. Did you guys do... Was that a late week? If that's a late week, I might change my mind. That's playoffs. Let's go to regular season. And Blinn was over Blinn ISU there. And Blinn, Winthrop. I'm going to have to go back too far to care, I think. If it was more recent, October 8th, no, too far back. Sorry. Where Tamu? Yeah, Tamu's right here. There's lots of dogs. I mean, dogs are a pretty popular mascot. Dog, 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 lion, dog. You know, that's Dog. Bobcat. I know, not actually a dog, but things that kind of look like dogs. Uh, lion dog. Voltron, go get the lion dogs. I don't know. Maybe we'll make this one a bear dog. I got nothing. Uh, tiger dog Mizzou. You could be onto it. Scooby Doo dog. True, true, true. Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Apparently, we're the King Huskies. Good to know. I didn't know that. Is that a fun fact? Is that fact fun? Okay. So we continue. Okay, so we were working our way back through here. We've actually got to do lower core next, I think. But we sort of talked about this. Northwood's here basically over their season performance. Yes, their most recent win is good. Their most recent win is great. In fact, it does not erase all of the sins of this season that they've had, as far as I'm concerned. Uh, we'll see what happens. Brian Stratton has gotten the wins to be here. Bellevue, as we look through on Bellevue, we can see that Bellevue got the win over Converse, who had previously beaten ASU. That's part of how they end up where they are. They also swept St. Clair. St. Clair is firmly in the lower core at this point. I do not think Malga Comp has gone well for them. And that's wrong season. That's effectively what we're looking at there. And then Bellevue out to Fisher. So that kind of gets us most of this lower core tier. We sort of talked about Bellevue and Converse. We just saw both of their runs in ABC here. Bellevue and Converse. Again, we're looking at this. They've had some trades between them all semester, but Bellevue does have the St. Clair win here. Did ultimately beat Converse here. Converse beat ASU, got the win over Illinois Orange that I don't really care about. So really, they're just looking at that ASU win, but that is what they're looking at as the most recent thing. Blinn, good run. I don't mean to take anything away from them. Looks like they go out in top 8 here. Perfectly reasonable place for them to go out. That's a good run for them. Maybe they should be 2 spots forward. Maybe. But a month ago, I tend to think Converse played up here to beat ASU rather than ASU falling apart, though maybe it was more that. If it was more ASU falling apart, maybe both of them should have fallen more. ASU did fall from this. I had ASU in this tier before, and I had Converse back like here-ish before. So both of them moved directions to get here. Um, Sorry to spam, but is that a piece of pizza with a pirate hat on? Yes, yes, Minnesota, the Minnesota Pizza Pirates. That is in fact a team, the Minnesota Pizza Pirates. They have made groups before. They've made groups. They generally make groups. They're generally about a top 64 team. Top 64 probably doesn't quite usually pay them. Probably isn't quite enough respect for them. They're probably closer to a top 32, top 40 team. Last semester, maybe they were a top like 27 team. This semester, I think they're worse than that. This semester, top 64 is probably an accurate clock on them. They might not have even actually made top 64, but that's probably about their level. Minnesota beat IWU close 3-2 about a year ago at LAN. That's the only result I know from them. Yeah, I mean, that's a thing that happens. Hey, Exeter, how you doing? Yeah, I mean, they're a team. They play in some things. Last season, they were part of the 4-way trade circle of suck between them, North Texas, Utah, and North Texas, Utah, Minnesota, and Grand Canyon University, who was the one that actually got through. Grand Canyon University clearly fell off hard, got nowhere close to that this semester. Minnesota didn't fall off as hard, but didn't make it to that height again either. Utah seems to have made it a little bit harder. Higher, North Texas seems to be about the same place relative, maybe a little bit better. Okay, cool. UCI is a bird? No. Irvine is not a bird. That's an anteater. UCI is an anteater. Yeah. UCI is anteater. UC Santa Cruz is banana slug. The University of California system has some interesting mascots. Okay. So that is these. St. Clair has been falling. They have wins this semester, so they're not falling further than this, barring losing to a meaningfully worse team down here. But they've fallen from top of this tier to bottom of this tier. They were maybe threatening this tier before, but they never made it. Clearly, never made it. I don't think I ever actually had them in the tier above, but they were at the front of this tier for a while. They've fallen back. Cumberland is now firmly in this tier. Cumberland, you've been promoted. You are in this tier. Your win over Bellevue absolutely matters. Absolutely good. Bellevue is still going to be way ahead of you guys, at least within the tier because of they have a better body of work than you this semester in terms of other teams that they've gotten meaningful wins over. But this is cool. Do it again next semester. Continue to do it in playoffs. I don't think I saw you guys in NACE, and I think you guys were in Division 2 for NECC, so it's a little unfortunate because you won't have real competition there, but that should change for next semester. I hope this keeps you guys at the level of no, you're now a member of Core Overwatch. Gonna next semester again have to find 1 to 2 or more wins off of core teams here. That's what it takes. You guys saw I just demoted Il and I over not having frigging won a match in a year. And all that had a long history of being in the core there. Bang, only up from here. You hope so. You hope so, but that's not always how it goes. It's pretty easy. You could easily not be quite as hungry because you sort of are like, oh, we're a real team now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, in all the matches before, you were expected to lose, and you got to be the hungry challenger. Now, you're expected to be able to trade with these teams. It's expected. You're expected to shut out the pit and just go, yeah, we'll just never lose to you. You can lose to them, depending on the meta. I wonder if Temporal's talking about someone specific. Oh, and what? Was this an all-in semester for Cumberland like it was for Northeastern? It clearly didn't work for us. I think Cumberland gets to hold on to their roster. I would imagine that I would imagine that that roster is relatively junior, like freshmen and sophomores, but we've got people here who can tell me if I'm wrong. You did get scammed by getting put in Division 2. Oh, got it. Got it. Yes, yes. It's easier to be, the challenger than it is to be the king. When you're sitting there as a 3-time champ, for example, it's a lot harder to motivate yourself to go get that 4th championship than it is to be hungry and go, we can take it from them. We can do it. We can muscle past. That's just how it works. All pretty much freshmen except Lynn. There you go. So they've got time to develop that roster, to continue to build. They've just got to be hungry and want to do it, sort of thing. Cool. Okay. And then we went over all of the tiers except the pit. I don't think there's a ton to go over in the pit here that's really worth updating. The pit is the pit. I can move schools around in the pit if someone's going to give me feedback, but I'm going to be honest, I haven't meaningfully gone back to update my pit order because most of these teams have been eliminated. Like most of these teams, they're not in NACE playoffs. They're not in NECC Division 1 playoffs. They're not in ABC play. I mean, there's only 6 teams still live in ABC playoffs, but they weren't in top 16 or even top 32 for the most part. ABC playoffs. There hasn't been a reason really to move these guys much since the last update. So I think now I just catch up with chat unless you guys have something. Oh, we've gone long on this one. Yeah, we have, but people are having fun, it sounds like. I'll catch up on chat and then we'll find the next thing. UNT number 1 next case. Okay. Well, maybe UNT is number 1 in the pit. I think you might have some objections from Fisher, ISU, next semester's Briarcliff for sure. Terps didn't quite sustain their early season bigger push, impressiveness. Um, yeah, I think you might get some objections from Fisher 2, YSU Academy, a couple teams like that. But hey, you go for it. Run hard. You have a brand new main support player this season in the Orlando Spring. That sounds like us. Literally has never needed to play another MS. It's crazy. It's weird because Lucio has for most of Overwatch been such a mainstay, but we've been in a Brig meta for the entire collegiate season now. Our current MS is a tank player. We forced to learn main support. It's true. It's true. For spring 2025, who is your highest riser prediction and your hardest faller prediction? Oh, that's good. So for spring 2025, who's going to climb the most and who's going to fall the hardest? The hardest fall and biggest rise. So Rutgers will be the biggest rise because the meta will shift and they still get to play next semester and they'll get to climb meaningful positions. So they'll climb to the highest spot because they'll get back to here or maybe this tier, but this tier usually isn't just the second place team. Usually it's 3 or 4 teams and the second place team is up here. Right now that doesn't make sense because the gap is too big. So the biggest jump could be Rutgers just because they'll be good in a different meta. Just reality. Um that would be it. You could get a bigger rise from a team that's just like an unknown. Briarcliff would be the other possibility. Briarcliff should work their way up to like here, something in this tier, lower core here. Briarcliff should work their way into this tier with the players that I expect them to have next semester, and that's a pretty big rise as well. So Rutgers or Briarcliff are probably my guesses for biggest rise. Hardest fall? I have questions. I don't think any school is going to do it in the spring, but I do have questions about if some of these teams will be willing to restock based on their most recent. Nah, UCI probably has bought themselves a new life. I know the school like a year ago made a decision on whether to keep funding or not. Um, you guys actually have. Are there replacements that exist in your Canadian system because you like to recruit Canadian? Uh, these three would be my question marks, and I know that looks weird. Not for the spring. For the spring, I don't have a good prediction for the spring. For the fall, these sort of become my question marks. I was surprised that Northwood was able to make the recruitments that they made, honestly. They did. Clearly, they're mentally tapped out, but they made the recruitments. Maryville sort of, built the system, built players, but is for the most part had a very stable, these are our players and we take them all the way through graduation. And I just don't know that I feel like they've lined up the next generation, but they may have enough time on most of their players that it's okay. St. Clair, I actually probably have the biggest question mark about. Bryant Stratton and Blinn and St. Clair always have to do the fastest replacements because they are they're junior colleges, 2-year schools, community colleges, whatever you want to call them. Some of them may have 4-year programs, limited 4-year programs, but that's mostly what they are. And that just makes recruiting harder. Now, I probably have Brian Stratton has a long history at this point of being competent, and I don't think their players are rushing through school, etc. I have less concern about them. They also just recruited, half of their roster. Kyle, I think, will be fine to get replacements for his team as well when they graduate. I know none of these are really that impactful for the actual question that was asked. St. Clair, I have the biggest question mark about because, they get a lot of Canadian funding, as I understand it, that is specifically for, hey, make sure Canada has a place in esports, make sure this. And I'm not sure the talent still exists. The talent probably doesn't exist. The whole esports Overwatch scene is going to have some of this problem, but they may face it harder than others, where once the current sort of crop of known former contenders players, former owl players graduates, the you're not there's going to be a decrease in the level of all collegiate Overwatch, face Overwatch, whatever. Like once this crop graduates, leaves the scene, whatever, we're not going to have a replacement because there's not going to be a stock of people that were grinding with the hopes of making Overwatch League. And that's actually like really important. We're still getting to go off the dregs of that, even if they're half dialed in some of these cases, but that'll probably lead to a bit of a lowering of the level. It'll definitely lead to a scouting is going to get harder in some ways. Scouting will get harder. There'll be just be less like, oh, these are the known good players. I don't know that Face It has enough buy-in. Maybe it does to believe that that's where the top players are going to end up, but the prize pools certainly haven't. That it has a registration fee to play in. I think scouting's going to get harder, and I think St. Clair, if it really wants to stay like we're getting very good players to compete, and they are Canadian, I think that's going to be hard. But that's not really a fall 2025 problem. That's probably, or a spring 2025 problem. That's probably a fall 2025 problem based on the timers that I'd expect those players to be on. That's why having Face It is so important, or some form of open tourney. Yeah, we've got to have something to let people play, but even with something to let people play, like a Face It, like an open division, like an OWCS, there's just not going to be. The players aren't going to come to college as pre developed as they were. They're just not, because the scene, there's not going to be as much reason to push in the scrim scene and the tournament scene as there was when Overwatch League existed. And I know Overwatch League hasn't existed for a minute now, but it matters because the reality is the player base that all of us are pulling from as directors and coaches and everything and programs is players who were training to be in the Overwatch League. We've all been able to pull from players that existed in an ecosystem of training to be in something that economically for them looks sustainable. It was never economically sustainable at a macro standpoint, but that means we're not, gone are going to be the days of let me go find players that spent 6 months, a year, 2 years scrimming, I don't know, 12 times a week, 9 times a week, 7 times a week. That's going to be gone because, and that absolutely happened, and that absolutely happened when people were training to try to make owl, etc. More than it should have really, but that really does develop players pretty quickly. And while players are in collegiate, most of us can't have them scrim that hard because they have class loads, and so how much can you develop them at the college level? They're not coming to you pre-developed for the most part. A few of them are. You're trying to get the ones that are, but I do expect the scene's level to drop a bit. And not just in collegiate. Okay. Please give me League Zero back. There you go. There you go. That could be it. That could be the solution. Okay. We love being good at academic schools and just desperately hoping a combination of good grades and high skills. My goodness, if there's any like good DPS players out there watching this that are not currently out of school or need to transfer from a community college, please, and want to go to a strong academic school with great co-op program to make sure you actually have a job on the other side of university, talk to me, Northeastern. We're plugging a little advertisement. Okay. It's hard to get players into Northeastern. The acceptance rate is low. I'll just say that much. Go get Zomba. Yeah, there's an idea. There's an idea. Try being a recruiter at SCAD. Have to have good grades. Only want specific art degrees and be good at games. I've heard recruiting is a nightmare. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Poor SCAD. Poor SCAD. So we got a 5.0 on a 4.0 scale. I don't think they do that. Don't they cap those at 4.6 still? Even weighted? Or is that a thing of the past? I'm, old, so. Could you? Oh, sure, I can peek at NECC Div 2. No problem. It's Div 1, I have a Div 2. So if I do a refresh here, This should East playoffs and West Central playoffs. Okay, so let's get one there and get one there. There's schools that can scout boatloads of good players with experience. It's called Fisher. I don't know if you've heard of them. That's true. That's true. Fisher does scout players, and they scout enough players from multiple teams. Good on them. Fisher should also be in the bucket. Sorry, I did the bucket earlier of 2-year schools that always have to replace, and Fisher obviously is in that bucket as well. Um, where their players are going to be on shorter timers. You can stretch it out, and BSC seems to have done that before because it's not like community colleges will actually kick you out. You can keep going there for a while. You do have leagues that'll have semester or eligibility locks, but I don't think those have ever actually been enforced yet. Um, maybe they have for some of the community college specific circuits, but yes, Fisher is on that list. And Fisher does go get players, it's true, but we'll see. Again, there's in some ways less talent to go get because the talent that trained for Overwatch League is aging out, and the generation behind it won't have trained for Overwatch League, won't have trained the way that the previous generation trained. Overwatch could turn into League where how do you go find young people playing it? Could be a problem. Could be a problem. Anyway, so we were looking at Div 2 brackets. So I've got East and I've got West Central. We'll start with East here. And of these, why does Georgia Tech have the 4 seed? Okay, you guys are going to make me look. So here we are, and this is East A and East B. I'm going to have to go look at the regular season. Did Georgia Tech forfeit, or do I need to bump them down? Georgia Tech, where are you? Are you in the other one? Okay. I know you lost to Cumberland. That's fine. Georgia Tech. 3-1. 3 forfeits. 3-1 versus Cumberland. Oh, what's this? 3 forfeits. Oh, so you're just getting. Got it. So you have the number 2, which is the number 4 because they just gave 1 and 3 to the other side. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Gave me a little. It's just silly because I don't think the bracket actually has a number. Arcadia is the 1 seed, guys. That's real and true. Arcadia is the 1 seed. I'm sorry, Arcadia, but that's silly. The 1 and 2 seeds here should be 1 and 2 and maybe 3. That's what that should be. Hey, well, we'll deal. We'll deal. Um, it's just funny. Uh, Georgia Tech. Yeah, that's good. Okay, fine. So, I mean, this is interesting. There's 3 teams we'd care about here. Drexel has been okay in the past. Michigan has been okay in the past. I want to say Michigan has won one of these divisions before. I don't remember what division level it was, but I want to say I saw on stream them sweep something. Anyway, the point that I'm getting to here is we know how this is going to go. Arcadia probably beat Central Florida. Probably. Central Florida, did you ever actually get to field that player? No, you did not. That's fine. So yeah, we know how this goes. This bracket is very predictable in the sense of there's only three teams we care about. Cumberland wins. Converse Gold wins. Drexel isn't nothing. Cumberland wins. Georgia Tech wins. I'm gonna say Arcadia wins, but I don't think. Georgia Tech wins through to here. I think Cumberland comes back for win number 3, but this is what I'm talking about, Cumberland. This is the case where we've beat these guys twice before. Okay, we can, not phone it in, but like we've beat these guys before. They're going to have the proving to do. They're going to be the hungry team that's going to say, that's our spot that you took. We should be up there. We are the team that last semester did what you did this semester. And they are the team that last semester did what you did this semester. So be ready. Be ready for that team to be hungry. Okay. Okay. So going through here. Best two teams will meet in the final, so it's fine. Yeah. You guys did end up on opposite sides of the bracket, so it works. You're right. You're hungrier? Good. Good. Temporal, we've won. Overwatch Classic 6v6 is back. Even if it's just a taste, it's proof that real masculine gameplay can still return. It's a small victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. Why, thank you, Andrew Tate. Thank you for sharing that message that 6v6 is back. Okay. You'll have to go talk with Donald Trump, who I guess was also in the Discord, because we have apparently people role playing in this Discord now. I don't know how NECC works. Is Division 2 versus Division 1 decided by NEC admins' perception? No, it's decided mostly based off of SR, which works for the lower divisions, but it's decided based off of SR, based off of a little preseason placement tournament that they lightly take impact from, and then based a little bit based off of their perception. NECC is set up well to service probably divisions 3 through 5, maybe divisions 2 through 5, whatever we want to call it. NECC's rules aren't really set up well for top division teams. Like, you can only play on a role that you've placed on an account that you've placed and shown your SR for, and you have to play with open profiles. And look, guys, I know that that's Lep on the other team on Northwood. I don't care what account he's on. I don't care if he unprivates his profile. The top teams know who each other are, and for the most part, have historically been pretty flexible with each other. They're like, oh, and now we're in the middle of the season, a new season started, so you got to play again to place your games. It's like, I get why that matters the same way that would have mattered for like ELO Hell leagues of like, hey, the lower division teams want to make sure that their plats aren't having to play against a smurfing GM player, but those rules aren't really written in a way that is, it's not like the worst thing in the world. It's just mildly annoying for Div 1 teams. But going back to that, the greater point that was making is they're doing it by SR, and that's not how Div 1 teams work. Div 1 teams work much more by go look at Okra's ranking, or if you don't want to look at Okra's ranking and you need instant power rankings, call Temporal. NACE has historically done a good job of that. NACE is actually their committee, like internally. When they used to publish Overwatch rankings, those tended to be terrible. Sorry, NACE. But when they've had to seed tournaments before, NACE has shown that they've got a pretty good finger to the pulse of where the teams actually are. Like, I remember in the final summer of Overwatch 1, there was a multiple weeks of tournament where the top 4 teams got promoted to the actual main tournament. There was multiple weeks of a qualifier, and they did a very good job of seeding that. A much better each week. A much better job than, say, Hugh Fest did when Hugh was the final Hugh Fest for Overwatch. NECC does okay. I can understand how they would have made the decision to put New York Violet Legion in here, for example. It was clearly wrong. Georgia Tech or Cumberland should have been in here instead, for sure. But then Terps being in here maybe was off of SR, maybe was off of them beating both Fishers? No, just one Fisher. They beat Fisher White in the qualifier, and then they got a map off Irvine. Might have beat Irvine. I don't remember. Um, so there was clearly some influence from but clearly they were preceded to go towards here, and if they'd lost hard, maybe they would have been dropped, sort of thing. The activation matches, preseason matches, I'm skeptical of how much weight they really have. It's mostly off of SR, and the top of Overwatch is not actually. These teams aren't actually done by SR. They're just not. The best teams aren't the best teams because they have the highest SR. The best teams do all have high SR, but the best teams are not the best teams because their SR average is 50 or 60 points higher than the team next to them. Okay. Temporal batting himself off the back for what? I don't remember. Um, Even at our start, the matches took under 15 minutes of game times for placement. Even at our start, the matches took under 15 minutes of game time for placements. You're saying your actual game time was less than 15 minutes total to finish all of your placement matches? Maybe for the replacement, but the first one for when they made us replace in the middle of the season, but the first one that wasn't true for you. If you hadn't already placed, you would have had to play multiple matches. Phone the other now. Okay, sorry. I'm going to the other one. I'm going to the other side here. Okay, this is more interesting. You're right. Illinois Orange will probably, I don't know, win this and then have roster issues, and then Santa Cruz will win through. I'd like to say I'm kidding, but like, am I? Am I? Am I kidding? Um, Uh, so Illinois should just win this if they're playing real roster, don't have internet issues, etc. This could be interesting. I think it'll be Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz has proven to be stronger than Iowa this semester. Based on what I've seen, Iowa has been good in the past. Iowa had a season where they were the gatekeeper to core. They don't, I think, they never made core, but they were gatekeeper. Then when they had their core of Zeb, Z-Man, and Buckethead, solid core that put them right outside of the core that season, and they don't look as strong as I think they're playing together, maybe together without Buckethead and Face It. I think I saw that, and then Buckethead is playing on a higher level team. But I think Santa Cruz will probably win this, and on paper Illinois should win from there. Here, this could be interesting. CSULB Gold versus Illinois Wesley. At the beginning of the season, I'd have said Illinois Wesley. CSULB Gold has been around the scene for a while as a relevant at times, not relevant at other times team. So I don't think that's free. CSULB, I think, is the team that beat Illinois with some help from, major lag on Illinois' side. But that could get pretty interesting, actually. We played without Bucket and Face It Open and got third, but he's focused on Face It, so we had some collegiate matches without him. Made it difficult, but he's there for most of NECC. Nice, Spike. That's good to hear. Do you guys? I mean, you have to tell me yes. You have to tell me yes. But how are you feeling about Santa Cruz? Violet Legion is New York Ultraviolet's New York University. Yes, Kyle. And Violet Legion did okay, I want to say. Violet Legion was good last semester. I remember they took a map off Boise and took a map off Boise, and then surely made groups, but were in a place where they were never actually going to get through their group. I don't think they actually had any notable wins, but that was sort of a what's going on? What's going on situation. I think we can beat them, but not going to be easy by any means. Okay. You hear CSULB has a really cool tank player named Frisco. I see that in the Okra Discord, and if it's in the Okra Discord, it must be true. And if Frisco is playing for CSULB Gold, I think Illinois Wesley is up a creek without a paddle. So, the Okra Discord CSULB Frisco might just be too much for Illinois Wesley. And then we have this too, which is also like should be a close match. It's 4 seed versus 5 seed. My only prediction there would be, well, I guess I can't even look at what they did regular season because they'll have been split between them. So that's going to be Rebels, which is Las Vegas versus Texas A&M, which I'm going to favor Texas A&M for, but that's a close one. I'll just run you guys through and assume that you're not gonna mess up. CSULB Gold, Illinois Wesley. It is a crime, by the way. And this is how you know they're not going off of reputation, because Illinois Esports being in Division 2 rather than Division 1, if New York is in Division 1, that's just trolling. And that's why SR is not a good rule set for the top division. I totally get it. It serves the other divisions reasonably well. I think they do it because the other divisions demand it, cry for it, etc. But like, come on, we've got like Cumberland is hindsight in some ways. If people, wouldn't have known who Cumberland was, Cumberland just came onto the scene. But like that Georgia Tech and Illinois Esports are down here when, you know, Maryland and New York, and like, really? Are we sure about that? That seems wrong. Okay. So this, I mean, I'm gonna go with CSULB. I'm gonna say maybe there was more than a lag there. This will happen here. This will be the rematch. Oh yeah, Illinois Esports will play. Illinois Esports hopefully will try to play so they can get revenge for the match that they say they lost off of lag, etc. And then they'll go through here and win. And second place should ultimately belong to. Second place is tough. It could be A&M, it could be CSULB, it could be UC Santa Cruz. Maybe it could even be Iowa State. Maybe it could be Rebel Scott. Yeah, this is a way more interesting bracket. This is like probably the most interesting bracket. If I was closer to these teams, maybe I would have better vision into it. Illinois Esports, if they play their real roster and the meta shifts in any meaningful way, no one on any of these teams can contain Chopper. Like, no one on these teams is going to contain Chopper with a Zoolander brick pocket. Like, let's not kid ourselves. That's winning. But outside of that, uh, this is created a fun bracket. Um, yeah, I'm getting no objection. No objection there. This creates a fun bracket because like Texas A&M did go 8-2 in Swiss. Rebel Scarlet solid. Illinois Wesley, they've been top 25 in the past. You tell me sometimes that they beat Balls, other times Ball beats them throughout the season. That's a pretty those two teams have traded with each other a lot throughout the seasons, usually within the same season. And this season, we just saw Ball beat Siena Heights, so. But if you told me that Illinois Wesley beat them tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, that just sounds about right. Um, Iowa State has been getting the reps, and UC Santa Cruz is, creeping back into the scene. Though some of that is always a question of can you shut down a Doomfist one trick. But hey, this looks like a fun bracket. I'm gonna have to pay attention to this, and I wouldn't have expected that. Thank you for calling my attention to this, Kernmaster. Chopper and Zoolander destroyed you. I mean, it's they shouldn't be in your division. That's not your fault. At least the other Division 2 has both Georgia Tech and Cumberland, so those two can sharpen their fangs against each other. But I suspect both of those teams did look at the season and go, this is a lot of not very productive matches we have to play in order to get two relevant matches. One in the regular season and then one more, maybe two more in the playoffs. Like, and that's been my objection to like NACE pre-NACE Super too, where it's like, okay, you sign up for a season of NACE and you play in your division and you maybe have one meaningful match in the regular season, And then the playoffs are great, but if you immediately go into single elimination playoffs, okay, well, that sucks. And the regular season was like 5, 6, 7 weeks of, okay, so I do not care about 6 of these matches. I just do not care, sort of thing. But again, that's obviously a privilege from relatively high up in the scene looking down, but that is the reason that Super League and Legends Division, now Division One, got created because lots of teams felt that way. They went away with Legends, right? Yeah, that promotion tournament last semester was terrible. Um, okay, GT Tech, my beloved. Oh, we'll see them this week. We'll see them this week. We gotta make sure they're prepped for Cumberland. I say, which is not really why we're doing it. They're just part of our rotational schedule there. But uh, okay, taking a look here. That'll be a strong trial day for us. We have a couple people that we're rotating through to see who makes sense to replace Shashi. That should be a good day. Okay. Catching up on chat. As you got Acad got 2 forfeits by both Fisher teams. Had to play UCI in placement tournament. Got 2 forfeits by both Fisher teams. Yeah, Fisher dropped out part way into the tournament, I remember. Had to play UCI in placement tourney. I mean, that's how it works, right? Like, they were playing to maybe be in Division 1, and yes, they ended up in Division 1, and UCI is going to be in Division 1. Like, you're going to get Division 1 opponents if you're trying to be in Division 1. And they got in. Again, I'm not sure how much the preseason matches actually did to move teams around, which was probably good this time because it conflicted with OWCS. So a lot of the better teams withdrew because either they were playing in the OWCS. I know Northeastern did. I believe Blinn did. And other teams had their players off playing on their separate OWCS teams. Um, Let me catch up on chat here. Wait, what BPL player is coaching a team? What BPL player is coaching a team? Like, oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Um. Got it. Got it. I don't think they actually factored in the tournament like at all. I think that's true, which is probably better than what they did the previous semester, where they pretended UCI, Irvine's second team, with Romani as their tank, was the equivalent of a team that got third place in a lower division for the sake of their placement tournament. That wasn't true. That broke their tournament, as did other things. I remember there was like a legendary Mizzou versus Georgia Tech match in that placement tournament, or maybe multiple of them. Yeah, that had some stuff. Let's catch up a little bit more here. Love your Georgia Tech guys. Not enough to come in second place for the second fall in a row, though. Okay, okay. What else do we have? I've gotten a lot of people DMing me asking about recruitment, and my answer is, well, if you can get it on your own, we can get you stuff. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, my ability to help you is like much. Like, yes, they are in fact capable of performing as a varsity athlete, and how much is that worth to our admissions, if even? Um, okay, recruiter at SCAD. What else do we have? Less pros and top tier talent due to graduation. I think developmental teams will be more consistent and relevant, like Cumberland, Shoe, etc. Yeah, and I think that's good for the scene. I mean, that's what you want in some ways. Yeah, in some ways you can be the best by being a school in a physical sport that promotes your players to the NFL, NBA, whatever after a year. But I think it's a scene that's like more enjoyable if schools are developing talent. I agree. Don't think Faceit is the right system. I think grassroots tourneys are the best system, but I'm biased. Yeah, you're speaking for League Zero there, though. Um, Uh, Scared me for a second, Hedwig. What was that? What's not real? Fisher Navy has to be number one in the pit after beating Mizzou, surely. Oh, let me go pull this up. I remembered seeing something that was bad news. Is that what happened in the final week there? Let's go back to here. Uh, Oh, Fisher Navy there. Yeah, that was right after, and I mean literally right after they got walloped by Siena Heights. That was an insane weekend of Overwatch. Still credit. Yes, Navy is the number one team in the pit after that, no question. Um, but that to me is pretty similar to when Ball State got a win over Fisher. So it's sort of flipped now, where Georgia Tech broke Fisher. And then Ball just got the free win over them immediately following it. It's not quite as extreme as that one was. I think there's more earning it for Fisher Navy there than there was for, I think it was Ball versus, I think Fisher Navy actually last semester in group stage. But that's how I mentally looked at that and went, I think the break happened from the loss there. But maybe not. Regardless, Fisher's king of the pit here. Maybe Fisher should be up in the WTF tier, Fisher Navy, but that's how I justify putting them where I've got them. Surely Boise will participate in the coming semester. We'll see. We will absolutely see. I don't know if their roster's strong enough. They're not competing in that. We'll see at CCC. We'll see at CCC how they're doing. I wish we didn't spend an entirety of Collegiate in the Juno meta, but we did. Okay. I'll get current in just a second. UCI the Anteater Dog, Pizza Dog. Lots of birds. Yeah, a lot of birds. And week 5, that was in reference to Blinn over Converse. Maybe Blinn should be 2 spots higher. And that may change for my actual submitted rankings. I'll have to think on that a little harder. Cool. Fisher top 3, mark your words. Entirely possible. Entirely possible that Fisher finishes top 3. Like, this is pretty soft. Irvine spot here. I've got Irvine here, but this is the real cutoff. Like, this is the real cutoff. Like, these guys are all pretty tightly close together, and I think these guys are pretty tightly close together too. These guys still belong in this same tier, and they can't be that far apart because Cumberland just beat Bellevue. So maybe I will just say these are all pretty tightly together too. And I don't think the distance even between Bellevue and Northwood is that huge. Though I do think there's greater distance between this tier and this tier than there is between, say, a Bellevue and a Blinn. Yeah. Cool. Okay. But yes, no prize pools for any CC semester long tournament, but Nationals has somewhat of a prize pool. Yeah, and that maybe becomes a little bit of an issue for Liquipedia because Liquipedia doesn't like to award points for things that don't have prize pools, but the academic system is a little bit incompatible with prize pools. Not completely. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. Can't wait to see Boise finally play this upcoming weekend. We'll see. I want to see what Boise can do against some of the schools we actually track as opposed to in their own league that no other teams are in. Can't wait to meet the Queen Goat. The Queen Goat? Excuse me? Where are you meeting the Queen Goat? Oh, you're meeting Ginger Refill. Got it. I thought you were referring to Boise as having the Queen Goat. And I'm like, there's maybe like the strongest Queen players that I think of are not at Boise. That's for sure. Ginger is one of them, but yeah, Frisco would be another. um, Playfly should yield some points for having a decent prize for first. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, if they keep a decent prize pool, teams will sign up. That's how that works. Frisco's versus Ginger on Queen goes hard. True. True. Okay. Anything else here? Um, we got knocked out, but we're still helping other teams practicing. We're the most generous team in Overwatch. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's not what's going on. I mean, we are helping other teams practice, but the real reason for that is because we have to meld whoever our next player is going to be into that spot to make sure we're more successful this next semester. Fine. Okay, so it looks like we're there. I think that's going to do it. I think we've wrapped up here. This is probably the longest stream we've done on Collegiate Overwatch Power Rankings before, but I think we've more than covered it. Final minute to get your stuff in chat if you have questions, if you have something that you think I missed or something that you want me to address. Otherwise, we are coming towards the end. Does NECC D1 go towards Liquipedia at all? I don't remember. Nationals does, but I suppose I could try looking this up. I suspect what I'm going to find is Nationals, Legends Division. It looks like Legends Division did, but this all looks like Nationals. Yeah, I don't think it will. Regular season playoffs, maybe. I suspect these aren't giving points. They might be on Wikipedia, but I suspect they're not giving points because there's no prize pool. This stuff will be, but I suspect these aren't, except Legends, which had a prize pool. That sees that time. Yeah. Okay, that's gonna do it. I will see you guys next time. And it's been fun. It's been a fun season. Hopefully next season has a little bit more interesting meta shift, etc. Hopefully Tuesday makes things interesting, but maybe not because I kind of want to see. I kind of want to see some narratives that happen if the meta doesn't change. I think there's some fun storylines, paths, upsets. I think we'll get some fun upsets just because what we think of as the top teams are going to be de-rosterfied, defanged, whatever. But hey, we'll see. That's going to do it for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.